Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. So today we are going to take a look at the Transformers Legacy Evolution Deluxe Class Scraphook. Let's start off by taking a look at the packaging and then we'll get into the review. So of course up front we have Transformers on the side, we have Scraphook with a very classic up symbol, we have the Transformers Legacy Evolution logo, a really cool artwork shot of Scraphook in his truck mode, an open window displaying the figure and the packaging. There is a QR code, so if you do scan that it will show his stats. If you do flip to the side, there's two really cool artwork shots, one of a close-up of his face and a really cool battle pose. If you do flip to the back, there's several product shots, one of the robot and truck. He transforms in 17 steps. There's also two product shots showing the pieces and the Evo Fusion gimmick, and he's kind of like a modular, so he actually does separate into pieces and attach onto a different figure. And it's actually shown here he can attach to Hotshot, which I do have in the collection, and that review should be up on the channel or will be on the channel very soon. And of course I will show the Evo Fusion gimmick in this review at some point and show it on some figure. As for the final side, we do have the Legacy Evolution artwork. It's only half, so if you do get another figure from this line, another deluxe, you can put both boxes together and of course complete the artwork, which I actually really do like that feature. And that is pretty much it for the packaging, so let's now get into the review. Here we have Scraphook in his truck mode. Let's start off by taking a look at the accessories. Starting with the first two, there's actually these really cool kind of engine pieces which store on the front of the hood there, done in some really nice orange, kind of brown color, some really cool cylinder sections acting as the engine pieces, which are done in this really nice kind of gunmetal gray color. There's actually some nut and bolts. I think overall pretty well sculpted. And how these store is there is two ports, and of course you use the pegs for each individual piece, and you just store them just like that, just storing just like that on the front. And I think that looks pretty cool in my opinion. So going to the side, of course, we actually do have two more identical accessories. There are these really cool smoke stack pipe pieces, which are done in that really nice dark gray and pretty well sculpted in my opinion. And there is a peg and there is a port right there. You just store it just like that, which I think looks pretty cool. You can imagine some really cool flames or smoke spewing out of them, which is a pretty cool effect. And storing it on the other side, I think that looks pretty cool. Of course, I'm just showing how the instructions are supposed to be stored in the figure according to the instructions, so you can completely customize this however you wish. There is a ton of magnetic ports everywhere on this figure and this truck mode. Now going to the back, the last two accessories are this really cool battle wheel. There's some really cool spikes. They actually sculpted in some broken ones, which I think is super cool. Really nice dark gray color. There's actually four little circles in the center. You can imagine probably there's like a huge gun built into this, which I think is pretty cool and creative. Unfortunately, it's not blast piece compatible. And how this stores is there is a peg and there is a port right there. Sorry, it had to focus. There we go. And I think that looks pretty cool. As for the last accessory, I guess you can consider it two. It's two separate pieces. The hook and the whole kind of crane piece is two separate pieces. It comes packaged separately, but for this mode, of course, you do have to combine them together. Again, if you want to, you can store it separately. It's really up to your personal preference. I'm just showing how the instructions show it. But they actually did something pretty cool and creative. So the peg is actually sculpted in to the far side. So you actually do use this port right here. And since it's sculpted like that, it'll actually end up in the very center of the truck bed, which I think is pretty cool how they did that. And that is it for the accessories. I think that looks a lot better than before. It looked pretty bare before. That looks really cool. Let's take a look at the details. So starting at the very front with that grill section, mostly done in that really nice dark gray color. Some really cool spikes, huge grill section here looking very menacing. Of course, we have the entire engine block, which was the first two accessories, really cool cylinder sections and some really cool red on the sides. That really nice kind of sand light brown color, which is pretty cool, almost orange. And I really do like the barred windows. This definitely gives me Mad Max vibes. That looks so cool. If you do go to the side, we do have some really cool wheels. Fortunate enough, they are not mushroom peg. Again, really nice light gray, some kind of orange brown color, some cool spikes on the outside. And I really do like the patch details. There's a huge patch area, here, which you can actually see under it. There's some really cool kind of scrapes and scars. So he does look like he's been through a few battles. And there's actually some more. If you do remove the smokestack piece, there's some right there, which I think they did a really good job sculpt work wise. And I do hope, apparently we're going to get more Junkions. I hope they continue that theme. That looks really cool. And I also really do like how all four wheels are identical. Sometimes they might do a slightly different sculpt for the front and back, but they're actually quite similar, which is pretty cool. And the side windows are actually also barred. There's a little mirror there. And of course, the base color of this truck is really this kind of nice sand brown color. It's a really interesting color, but I do quite like it. And again, the whole barred windows look super cool. There's some spikes sticking out the top. Definitely a very war-torn truck mode. And of course, they have the really cool spikes or smokestacks sticking out. There's some spikes in the back wheels too. And we do have the whole crane piece and the really cool spike wheel on the back. I'd say probably my only complaint for this figure, which is, I'm not sure if I'm transferring it wrong. I'm pretty sure sure I'm transforming it correctly, but for some reason, as you can see, it is uneven. It's actually wobbling a little bit. I'm not sure if that's just my copy or if I don't have a flat surface. I'm pretty sure it should be flat. I really don't understand. Another thing I guess I could mention was probably a bigger deal is unfortunately the hands you can see just kind of sticking through there. Not the biggest deal, but honestly I think they should have done is actually had the crane placed there so you could have covered up the hands. But again, a very minor complaint. Overall, this truck actually looks super cool. It's so crazy looking, but really awesome at the same time. Let's now get down to a few vehicle mode comparisons. So here he is with another Deluxe Hot Shots. I think they look pretty cool next to each other. Just zooming out a little bit. And size-wise, I'd say they're pretty much relatively the same, but two very different vehicles, a sports car and a very war-torn truck, but they overall do look super cool, and I'm actually really looking forward to some more junk guns. I'd really like to see some, maybe like a motorcycle and some more crazy trucks. That would be super cool to see. And I will bring out Hotshot a little bit later, of course, for his weaponized kind of Evo Fusion gimmick. He'll be stored on top of a Hotshot, which is a pretty cool gimmick, so make sure you stay tuned for that at the very end of the video. Now for another comparison, here he is with Voyager Tarn. I thought they'd compare the two because they're both very war-torn, you know, heavy vehicles, a truck and a tank. And they do look pretty cool next to each other. Just a side view, front view. And for one last comparison, I thought I'd bring out a core class from Legacy Evolution Wave 1. Here he is with Slag or Slug, what are you going to call him? And that is pretty much it for the comparisons and this truck mode. So before transformation, I do want to say I'd probably advise to take off all the accessories. Some can stay if you want to. I think it just makes it a little bit easier. So when I begin transformation, all the accessories will be off. I think it's just a little bit easier, but of course you can keep them if you want to. That is pretty much it for the truck mode. So let's now get down to transformation into the robot mode. Now for transformation into the robot mode, what you're going to do is start the side. You're just going to flip these panels up just like that. And how these were tabbed in places, there is a tab on the inner part or the leg there, and there's a slot on this flap here. There's also a slot here and a tab there. You're going to do the same thing on their side, so just lift this panel up. And then what you can do is separate the legs. You can also flip the foot out, and just like that, do the same thing on their sides. Just flip the foot down and out. Just like that. Just bring this out, and there we go. Then you can hinge this entire section back like that, and there we have the legs all done. And then what you can do is go to the very back of the truck, and those are actually the arms. You're going to split here like that. And I do want to advise some caution, or just kind of give a warning. So I've heard quite a few people complain about the legs or the arms popping off during transformation. So I do want to make you aware, if it pops off, I will have to stop and just pop back on, but then I will continue with the transformation. So hopefully you understand. Just flip these out like that. So you can then also rotate at the bicep like that. Rotate at the bicep, and then you can get the hands. Just rotate that forward as well. And there we have the arms all oriented correctly. Then you can get that hinge this out, hinge this out like that. And then we're going to flip to the front, hinge this entire section up like this. There we go. And then you can get this swivel here, rotate this all the way around like that. And there we go. And then you can kind of reposition the arms just to get some added clearance. You're going to flip out the head from this panel here like that. It's quite tight. Flip this out. And then there is tabs on this inner section right here, and there is slots on that side piece right there. So you're just going to angle this out to get some added clearance. Just hinge these out like that, and then push this whole panel up to the chest, and then you can close it around there and lock these into place like that. There we go, tap them into place. Position the arms to your liking, and then go to the back. These panels will kind of overlap each other, so as you can see, there is a tab on this side, and there is a slot and tab on that side. So these will just kind of overlap each other like that. And there we have Scraphook in his robot mode. Let's take a look at the details. Here we have Scraphook in his robot mode. Let's start off by taking a look at the details. Starting at the very top with that head sculpt, some really nice dark brown for the main helmet section. There's actually this really cool kind of fin or like a mohawk piece done in really nice dark gray. There's some more of that dark gray for the face, and there's some red for one of the eyes. As for the other eye, there's a really cool eye patch done in that same dark gray with actually some really cool nut and bolt detailing. As for the chest, mostly done in that really nice red. There's actually some really cool kind of layering detailing there, or venting detailing. There's a classic up symbol done in red and white outlining. There's some more gunmetal gray for the stomach region. As for the arms, overall looking pretty cool. I really do like these whole front spike pieces sticking out. That actually looks super cool. On the side, we do have some more of those little patch pieces, which is really nice. Some little scars and dings and stuff. We have the wheels here with some more spikes, and some really nice orange, kind of brown for the forearms, and some gray for the hands. As for the legs, I really do like how the whole grill section is the front feet or toes for the legs. That actually looks super cool. Really cool spikes, some nut and bolt grill sections there. Really nice red detailing, little light pieces. And there's actually some ports here to store some accessories, so you can fill those in if you're bothered by those ports. On the side, of course, we have the other wheels there, which doesn't look too bad. On the back, overall, pretty well filled in. I do have to say, I probably have 2 complaints about the robot mode, just design-wise and where everything fits. So I really don't like how these whole sections just kind of stick out. These are the feet. So, of course, for before and the car mode, they were folded up here, so it really didn't matter that much. But this doesn't look the greatest, in my opinion. Another complaint of mine is, of course, these panels do overlap. But if you look through, there's just this big hollow area, so I really don't like that much. But everything else from the front profile and the side view, actually, he looks very cool. So let's now get down to articulations. The head can look up and down, side to side. As for the arm, it can move all the way around, so it can also move out. And of course, as you can see, unfortunately, it does pop off, so you just plug it back into place. It can move out and in. There is a bicep rotation and elbow bend. There is actually wrist rotation, which is really nice to see. Just moving the arms out of the way. There is a full waist rotation, which is pretty nice. There is a kick out to the side, so pretty much a full splits, a kick forward and back. There is a swivel at the leg, a knee bend, and for the foot, there's actually an ankle pivot in and out, which is pretty cool to see. You typically don't have that on a Deluxe Voyager or later. It's typically just out, so that's pretty cool to see. And that is pretty much it for articulation and details. Let's now get down to his many accessories. So this is kind of like the truck mode where you can really put them where you want. There's mech-type ports everywhere. There's some of the forearms, the hands, as you can see some of the legs. So I'm just going to show you how I like to store it. It is kind of similar to Hasbro's, so I like to put the whole spike wheel piece on either arm. I like to put it on the forearm here, so I'm just going to plug it in there like that. So of course there's the peg on the wheel, and there's a port in the forearm, just like that. And as for the crane, I like to put it in the other forearm right here, which is pretty cool looking, like that. Unfortunately, a little bit loose for my liking, but not too bad. As for the remaining accessories, these smokestacks or little pipe pieces, I actually store how Hasbro does it. So there's a port inside the wheel, and there is a peg right there. So I actually like to plug it into place like that. I think that looks pretty cool. And going to the other shoulder and arm, just getting the other one, storing it like that. As for the remaining 2, typically they're shown for these to be like blasters, but I actually like to keep them in the same place as the truck, so I actually store them on the front of the leg. I think that just looks the coolest, so just storing it right there like that. So you kind of have to you have to move the foot a little bit just to get out of the way. Doing the same thing on their leg. I just think it looks the coolest. I don't really think they work as guns as much. That's just my opinion. And there we have all the accessories stored on them. I think it looks much better because, of course, you fill in all those ports. And again, you can completely do this however you wish. It's slightly similar. The pipes, those are the same placement as Hasbro's, but everything else I think I mixed up a little bit. But that is pretty much it for accessories, articulation, and details. Let's now get down to a few comparisons. So here he is with the fellow Deluxe Hotshots. And I think they look pretty cool next to each other. As you can see, size-wise, he's actually a little bit bigger than Hotshot. Of course, not taking into account the smokestack sticking out, but he's a pretty good size Deluxe. And for one final comparison, here he is with the Voyager Leo Prime. Might have to zoom out a tad bit. He is quite big. There we go. Just moving up a little bit. Get them both in view. Overall looking pretty cool next to each other. And that is it for comparisons, details, and accessories. So let's now get down to the Evil Fusion gimmick. So his gimmick is really actually just completely separating him, and you can store onto another figure, kind of like the modular sort of theme that they did with Earthrise, like Ironworks and Airwave and all those figures. You could pull them apart and put onto accessories. So my test dummy or my test figure, I'm actually going to store it on a Hotshot. So I'm actually going to kind of go off cam, take all the accessories off, and get him ready for transformation for his Evo Fusion gimmick. Now for the Evo Fusion gimmick, what you're going to do is have Scraphook in his truck mode. You just lift up these panels on the side just like that. Do the same thing on the other side. Then you can actually separate the front of the truck if it hasn't already. Then you can just actually wiggle these pieces off of the main truck body just like that. And there is of course 2 ports there, and there is 2 pegs on these separate pieces, and these will actually become the whole shoulder pad. So you're going to actually have this peg here, and it will actually attach into a port on Hotshot's shoulder. So just have these just like that. You can actually put them off to the side for now. And then what you're going to do is actually separate this whole back portion from this main middle portion of the truck. So just separate these in half just like that. So then you can just wiggle them off of the ports and pegs. So there is a port right there, and there is a peg right there. Do the same thing on the other side just like that. And then you're going to turn these like this, and you can actually bring the arm down, and you're going to rotate this piece until you see this whole gap here facing up. Have the peg facing up like that. Do the same thing with the other ones. Just unravel that, rotate it so it faces like that. And then you can have that peg facing up. And there we have all the pieces all done. So according to the instructions with this piece, you just collapse these pieces and you don't actually use it all. So if you wanted to, you could kind of customize it and add this on the back or something. But as it is officially a part of the Evo Fusion gimmick, it's not really used, which is kind of unfortunate. But now for applying all these pieces to Hotshots, you're going to, of course, get, if you have this figure, Armada Hotshots from the Legacy Evolution line, there is a peg right here and there is a port on the bottom. That's just going to plug right into place. Do the same thing for the other foot. Just plug that into place. And there we have these pieces attached to his foot. Really just makes him, taller, which unfortunately it might make him a little bit harder to pose around. You do have to be aware of that. As for the shoulder pieces, you're actually also going to attach some accessories to them. So if you do have those smokestack pieces, little pipe pieces, you can actually attach them there. So there is a port and a peg that will just plug right into place like that. There we go. Do the same thing for the other one. Plug them in like that. And then there is a peg and a port, and that will plug in there just like that. Same for the other shoulder piece. And that is it for those pieces. Now for the rest of these accessories, again, you can really customize this however you wish, but I'm just going to show how the instructions show it. So it shows having this whole circular saw blade piece attached to his forearm like that. It also shows having the 2 engine pieces actually attached to his legs. So if you go to the side, there is a port right there on the side of his leg, and there is a peg, and these will just attach right into place just like that. Go to the other side, attach this other one in like that. And for the remaining accessories, you actually are supposed to put the whole hook piece in his hands. And it also does incorporate his own blaster with this figure, which is this one right here. And it just says to have him hold it in the other. And that is it for the Evo Fusion gimmick. And I think it's just okay. It's kind of like the modular, gimmick in Earthrise, which a lot of people really didn't like him that much. I never really used the whole feature with like COG or Ironworks or Airwave. I showed it for the review and that was pretty much it. And I never really put it on display or did it on my own free time because I thought it was just okay. This is kind of one of those situations where it's just okay. I do like the shoulder pieces, the whole smokestack pieces sticking out. That is pretty cool. And I think the use of putting the whole engine pieces on his the side of his leg, I think that I really do like that too. The whole bottom pieces for his feet, that doesn't look the greatest in my opinion because it actually does make him slightly hard to stand and it makes him a little bit wonky. So not the greatest there. I know they wanted to add some height to him, but honestly, I think if the engineering for this figure was slightly different, maybe they could have found a way to use this and actually use those for the entire leg pieces, because as it is, you don't use this whatsoever. I looked at the instructions, I watched people's reviews, and I never really found an actual exact use for this. So as it is, this is it. It's just okay. Let me know what you think of this Evo Fusion gimmick in the comments. Again, it's just kind of like the Earthrise and Siege, where it's just kind of a hodgepodge. Sometimes you like it, sometimes you don't. I actually quite like the whole fossilizer. You could attach the fossilizers onto other figures. I think those were probably the best form of this sort of thing. It's just okay. But of course, a full 360 just showing you around. So we have the whole shoulder pieces, these pieces on the side. I think that's a pretty good use of putting the engine pieces on the sides of the legs. I think that looks pretty cool. And of course, you can see the feet are kind of sticking out the back. So it is pretty messy. It is pretty messy, but it overall looks pretty cool. Of course, you could probably pick a better figure for this, like color matching wise, because he is dark gray and a ton of like black and stuff, and this is a very bright figure. So if you wanted to have it a little bit more natural, like all the pieces to look cohesive, you could try and get, maybe there'll be a figure down the line that has kind of the same color scheme as Scraphook, and maybe it would look a little bit better. I don't know. But that is it for the Evo Fusion gimmick and this review. So let's now get down to the final thoughts. Now for the final thoughts for the Transformers: The Legacy Evolution Deluxe Class Scraphook, starting in the truck mode. I actually really do like the truck mode. Very war-torn, super Mad Max feeling vibe to me. It looks super cool. There's a ton of damage. There's actually really cool patches everywhere, and there's actually really cool, because under the patch there's some really cool scrapes, quite a bit of nut and bolt detailing, and I really do like how the entire grill section is super war-torn. There's like a ton of spikes, really cool chains, and it's super cool. And I do have to mention, I like how the whole front grill section of the truck becomes the foot of the feet. I really do like that. And of course you can store all the accessories in several different ways. I did show in this video how the instructions showed. Of course there is magnetic ports everywhere on this figure, in the truck and the robot mode, so you can definitely customize it however you wish. I typically just go by instructions because I think they're typically pretty good of how they do it. And there's actually quite a bit of accessories at that. So there's these really cool engine pieces. There's a whole crane piece, which technically it is two separate pieces, the hook and the crane, but I typically do keep them attached together. And there's these really cool pipe pieces, which you can actually see right there. And I think they store pretty well. There's actually a really cool, creative, and really well sculpted area on the cranes. They actually sculpted in the peg to be on the far side, not in the middle. So if you attach it to the port on the back of the truck, it actually looks like it's sitting in the middle of the truck bed, which I think was pretty cool and creative on their part. I really like how they did that. Now down to transformation into the robot mode. Actually pretty quite simple. What's actually really nice about this one is, because previous weaponizers or modulars, whatever you would call them, like Cog, Airwave, Ironworks, stuff like that, typically you did have to completely separate the thing. Like the fossilizers, most of those you pretty much had to completely take it apart in any mode, in any way. And this one actually you do not have to remove any piece. Of course if you wanted to, it would be a little bit more fun, but this one you can stay completely attached, so I guess you don't really have to consider a parts form. I know some people are really bothered by parts forming and stuff like that, so maybe this will make you happy. I really don't know, but typically me, I really do not care about parts forming in any form. It really does not bother me. Getting down to the robot mode, again, I really do like how the accessories incorporate into this figure. It actually makes it really cool. So as you can see, the smokestacks are like on the sides, and actually it's super cool how they attach to the wheels on the shoulder. And we have the really cool spike wheel piece, which is actually super cool because they sculpted in some broken little spike pieces, which is pretty cool. And I also do like how you can actually keep the whole engine pieces on the legs. I think that looks best there. According to the instructions, you're supposed to use them as like weapons or guns in the hands of the forms, which is a good use, but I think it's better to store them on the legs, because if you don't, there's these huge ugly port sections, which yes, they're there for a reason. That's really the entire area for the truck, the whole truck hood section. So I do know why they're there, but unfortunately if you don't put anything in there, it does look a little bit ugly. And as I mentioned earlier, I do like how the in front grill section is actually the entire toe section for the remote, and I think that looks super cool. I do have a few complaints though, because unfortunately the entire back feet are a little bit ugly back here, because yes, these are supposed to be the heel spurs to help support it, but they're pretty thin, so it doesn't look the greatest from certain views. Also, this entire backpack section, I'm not bothered by the kibble or how much it is. I'm bothered by you overlap those panels, but if you look from the top view or the bottom, there's a huge open gap there, which I think they probably could have filled in a little bit better. But from the front profile and the side, there's some really cool details, and I do quite like this figure. And articulation-wise, I'm actually quite impressed. There's quite a bit of articulation. Of course, head rotation, it can look slightly up, so maybe a little bit better in that department if I was being picky. But the arms and legs, I think, are pretty average for a deluxe size figure. There's a waist rotation and a wrist rotation, which is actually really nice to see. I have to mention that because there's been previous figures where transformation has not affected the hand whatsoever, or the transformation, kind of like Armada Legacy Evolution Hotshot. He doesn't have a wrist rotation, but the transformation does not affect the arm whatsoever, and he didn't have one. So I do have to mention it here. I have to give credit where credit is due, and he has a wrist rotation, which is really nice to see. So overall, I really do like the robot mode. Getting down to, of course, the Evo Fusion gimmick, I think it's okay. I think it's just kind of like the other modulars and weaponizers from Siege and Earthrise, where I typically don't do it that much. I show it in the review, and that's pretty much it. I don't think I've transformed the other weaponizers I have into their other combined mode in like years. I barely ever do it because it's just okay. This one is one of those times where it's just okay. It's kind of hodgepodgey. I do like how the smokestacks attach onto the shields. It's pretty cool, and I really do like how they have a place for every accessory. Probably my favorite use of the accessories for the combined form I showed Hotshot in this video. It's pretty cool how they attach to the legs. I think that probably looks the best. And the whole spike ball on his form, I think that looks pretty cool as well. But unfortunately, having the arms become the feet for Hotshot is a little bit unstable, so posing him around and messing with him can be a bit finicky and kind of wobbly and a little bit messy. So a bit unfortunate there, but really not bummed, because honestly, I see this as a figure that turns into 2 modes, not really 3, because I'm probably never going to use that mode again. But let me know what you think of this figure in the comment section down below. Do you like the Evo Fusion gimmick, or are you like me where you just kind of show it once or transform it once and you never really just do it again because it's just okay? Personally, me, I think the best combined modes, or modes like these where you take the pieces and put them on another figure, I think the best ones that they've done from Hasbro are probably the fossilizers. I think they're pretty good. They're probably the best ones they've done. But the robot and truck are pretty solid. This is actually probably one Deluxe that I was kind of surprised of how good it was. I was mostly probably focusing on Tarn, Leo Prime, and Armada Hotshot. Those were probably my main goals or wants of this line. But I think Scraphook definitely surprised me. I think he's a pretty good figure that I highly suggest you get. Let me know what you think of this figure in the comment section down below. Hope you enjoyed the review, and I will see you next time.